In February of this year, we saw probably one of the most entertaining lightweight fights we've seen in a very long time between Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. Now, initially when I was watching this fight, I thought Volkanovski pulled it off. Watching the fight back, I can see how they give it to Islam. It just really comes down to the moment that Islam Makhachev had Volkanovski's back. Volkanovski was punching him, and the entire time he was not trying to escape. Now, although he landed the majority of the strikes in that position, the dominant position is being had by Islam Makhachev. Nobody is being severely hurt in that situation, so I can understand why the judges gave that moment to Islam. It was a real question mark when we were going to see this fight, but the moment Charles Oliveira came out and said he was unable to fight due to a cut, we heard that Volkanovski was going to take his place. So here we have it, Saturday. We are going to see the rematch between Islam Makhachev and Alexander Volkanovski. And one thing that interests me about this matchup is you really don't know what to expect. Volkanovski always shows up, and then we just really have to look at whether Volkanovski's conditioning is going to be a question. Now, I do have my opinion about what's going to happen in this fight, but what I want to do is I want to take both of these opponents into the UFC game, put them against each other in basically in like a 5-fight series, and see who comes out with the 3 wins. Starting in round 1 of fight 1. Both men are throwing combos, and neither of them land anything significant. It isn't long before Islam is attempting his grappling. It's defended by Volk, and he lands some clean elbows in the process. Both men landing combos after the break. Volk works a single leg, but that leads to Islam turning Volk towards the fence. And just like that, all that Sambo talk from Volk, and Islam with the clean hip toss, landing Volk on his back. Islam works to a crucifix, but Volk forces himself back to a side control position. Volk eventually works to half guard, and Islam is focusing on battering Volk with light shots. Islam works to full mount, batters Volk bad while in mount, and manages to pull off an arm bar submission. Volk didn't tap, but it looks like Volkanovski suffers an injury, causing the fight to finish. Now, I'll be honest, I really hope the fight doesn't go this way. I'm expecting this fight to go a bit longer, and I think that Islam is going to be very patient in the start, whereas Volk is probably going to be the one to push the pace a little bit more. This takes us to fight 2, round 1. Islam and Volk trade for the first 30 or so seconds. Volk's success on the feet manages to force Islam to attempt a takedown, but it's stuffed by Volkanovski. Islam lands some clean shots and works in for another takedown. He gets turned around by Volk, but manages to get another takedown similarly to the first fight. Volk makes his way to the half guard quickly, and both men are trading on the ground. Alex works his way to a full guard and works his way out all the way to Islam's back. Volk manages to batter Islam for the remainder of the round from mount and takes the first round easily. Now, this could be very similar to what we actually see. I think that Volk's going to be really strong in the beginning, especially on the ground. I think we'll be surprised by that. Into round 2, and Volkanovski is able to land some clean shots to start. Now, here is where I was becoming confused. Alex goes for a takedown and gets tossed yet again by Islam, landing himself in another unfavorable position. The thing I'm finding about these simulations, it's not clear cut every single time. It is often very back and forth like actual fights are in the UFC. It certainly makes for an unpredictable outcome. Alex is doing what he can to survive, but it is very clear that Islam is having his way with the grappling. Now, this is where it gets kind of weird. Islam works his way into a really questionable submission. I feel like he was going for an armbar and the game kind of glitched out, but he manages to finish with the submission I've literally never seen. Maybe you can comment below on what you think that submission is, or maybe it is a glitch that I've never seen before. Now, it's not looking good for Volkanovski. In this 5-fight series, Islam is currently up 2-0. After 2 fights, I don't have a lot of hope for Alex. Just considering his decision-making here in the UFC game, it's hard to picture him winning anything because he just seems to make not great decisions. Which, I'll be honest, that's pretty inaccurate AI in the UFC game because Volk makes incredible decisions. Very high percentage choices is usually what we see when we see Volkanovski fight. At the end of this fight, Alex is visibly upset, and that's not a good sign going into fight number 3. Here we go. Fight 3, round 1. Islam comes out with an Iceman-style left hand. Alex is working with leg kicks, and Islam is not enjoying it. It's not long before Islam works into a double leg, and as you guess, it's success. Alex seems more focused on trading punches from the bottom than he does to work his way back to his feet. Islam gets to the mount and is able to posture up and rain down some clean shots. Alex eventually is able to spin out, and Islam has hooks in the back of Volk. It's to the half guard for Volk, and he just cannot keep Islam from advancing. Alex is getting rocked bad from the mount position. Islam is landing some questionable shots to the back of the head. Volk survived the round, but it's a clean round win for Islam. It's currently not close in this fight either. Second round, both men trade straights, and Volk goes for multiple kicks, causing Islam to grab the body of Alex. Finally, Alex defends the takedown. Volk just needs to land a clean shot to keep Islam at a healthy distance, and that's what I'm talking about. He lands a shot which rocks Islam, a clean head kick to follow, and manages to go for the most questionable takedown of his entire career. This is what I'm talking about. The AI within the UFC version of Alexander Volkanovski is so inaccurate, it's mind-blowing. Islam defends easily, and here we go again. The jokes about Sambo within Alex's team are proving to be nothing but exactly that, a joke. And Islam proves it's very helpful, getting Volk on his back yet again. The ground game ends up being much of the same, and Islam scores a third victory to close out the 5-fight series with a submission. Now, here's the thing. I was so confused by this. I did not understand how Volkanovski was constantly making these terrible choices. We never see him do this in his actual fights. The only thing that I would say frustrates me about Volkanovski is when he was fighting Islam, it was oftentimes he was defending submissions and actually landing shots from unfavorable positions, like when Islam would have his back, but he wouldn't try to work out of those positions. And I think he's trying to preserve his energy a bit, so he's just kind of sitting there. But the only thing is, you're letting Islam score. And as a fan of Alex, that's obviously not something we would want to see. What I think is going to happen in the Makhachev-Volkanovski fight, I'm going to go ahead and say that Volkanovski is going to surprise Makhachev on the feet, and he's going to rock him, and he's going to finish him. The thing about the first fight that I think about is, sure, Makhachev scored more points when you look at it from that judge perspective, but it's really important what Alexander Volkanovski said at the press conference the other day. He basically just asks how the fight finishes. We know how it finished. Islam got rocked. Islam was on his back. Volkanovski was in full guard, smashing him. And that's something to consider. That's something to think about. I think Islam's going to be very careful in this fight, and Volkanovski doesn't need to be. He's going to go out and he's going to surprise Islam and come out with the win.